transmission of election results. Election is actually a process, a combination of several activities. In 2019, INEC issued regulation and guidelines for the conduct of elections. And I think Regulation 10 thereof, paragraph 8, makes mandatory the use of smart card readers. The smart card reader is put to use in the process of accreditation. The smart card reader reads the PVC and then also authenticates the fingerprint of the prospective voter. But the question is, the voting, the actual voting is still being done manually. And then I also kept wondering, if we're talking about electronic transmission of results, but there are processes leading to the result itself, the election result. You have accreditation, you have the actual voting, you have the submission of the scores before you generate the result. And so if you have a manual background, how then do you impute it electronically before you talk about transmitting the results electronically? What we have here is a situation where the accreditation, even if you do, you have a situation where it is only this, it is not only the electronic accreditation, you can also do it manually. And then you have the forms, the electoral form like form EC8A and the polling units, where entries are made manually. The entries are made manually. Then you can't have the results transmitted electronically when the backup processes are manual. So those are the questions that kept agitating my mind as a person. And then beyond the transmission of the results, you also have the process of collation. All these are still being done manually. We have a practice where at the end of voting at the polling units, the results are recorded and announced, and then you have the polling officer carrying it by hand to the ward collation center. And the same process is also repeated from the ward collation centers to the local government and so on and so forth before the election result will be finally announced. We can only talk about electronic transmission when all the processes are also electronic. You can't have the input manually and then expect an electronic output. That is standing logic on its head. And you can't talk about electronic transmission and its impact, an election petition, except the whole process, becomes digital. You have e-process all through that ends up with an e-result. And of course, that has a serious implication. If we have a digital process that ends up generating an e-result, then at the election petition tribunal, to my mind, you have issues narrow, because you won't have the challenge which we have now of calling several witnesses, especially the polling agents, to come to give evidence as to what happened at the polling station. I had experience where in some of the matters we heard at the tribunal, you have where in the constituency, the House of Assembly election, you have 163 polling units, and the petitioner is not able to get up to 5 polling agents. The ones they were able to call, they were subpoenaing those witnesses and didn't have their written statements concluded. That was already an issue. So even though they also, in some of those cases, were able to produce the card reader report, but of course, the state of the law is that the card reader report will give way to the voters register when it comes to the issue of accreditation. But if we are able to attain a total digital system, then you find out that maybe what the before that we're talking about, where we now test the admissibility of the e-document and also what with the section 30 of the Evidence Act that talks about weights. That way the issues are narrowed just to, the authenticity of the e-result. It may not be an Eldorado, but I believe it will have been a substantial improvement of what we have on ground. So that's my take on the issue.
Thank you very much. That was quite quick. Let me call on my learned colleague to make his own presentation.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, please also permit me to stand on the well-established existing protocol. Maybe if we make them like the bullet points, do we really need electronic voting? Yes, I think so. Will it serve any useful purpose? Yes. Electronic voting, electronic transmission of election results will solve some of the existing problems that we presently have in the electoral process, which leads to election petitions. Every season, once you have an election, the regular courts almost slow down because judicial officers have to be called out to constitute panels for election petitions, appeals, and all of that. It exerts a major toll on the judicial process. Now, something like electronic voting, electronic transmission, ultimately will solve some of those problems. Now, is it something we can do immediately? Because I see the knee-jerk approach our legislators seem to have. A year to an election, that is the time you want to introduce such a novel innovation, electronic voting. Then you hear all the arguments about, you don't have the critical infrastructure, you don't have the personnel, the manpower, and all of that. It's also a valid argument. My own take on it is, look, we will need electronic voting and electronic transmission of results, but that is an end. It is something we need to work towards. So let us have the law in place. INEC came up with card reader, the innovation of the card reader device. The Supreme Court says, look, card readers not known to law cannot therefore supplant accreditation by the use of the voters register. Now the National Assembly wants to empower INEC. At least let us have a system where INEC has the legal rights. The law provides for it. Yes, we do our manual, the process which we already know, manual voting, and then you introduce the electronic voting, the electronic transmission. Gradually, you phase out the manual voting and manual transmission. See the problem with manual transmission. Election results are declared in a polling unit far away, one very remote part of the state. The results are handed over to two human beings, the EO and the returning officer. These two individuals, with the aid of one solitary police officer, will travel across the sea, travel by road, and find their way to INEC headquarters. A lot happens along the way. We did not say it, but we all know. I have had the misfortune of appearing in the tribunal. The petitioner approached, look, see the results of the election. I was declared the winner at the election center, duly signed by the returning officer. But by the time INEC has announced the results, it is my opponent that was declared the winner. We march confidently to the election tribunal. Then the problems start. You didn't call all the witnesses polling unit by polling unit. How under God an election of 120 polling units, how under God's heaven am I to bear the burden of calling witnesses from all 160 polling units? To make a bad situation worse, you are giving 10 days maximum. Statutory, the electoral act says the petitioner has the maximum of 14 days. The tribunal will usually reduce it to 10 or 7 or 6. Now, when you hear 7 or 10 days, it's not actual days. 1 day is actually 2 hours. So, the court is sitting, and you have taken 2 hours. Like we all experience in cross-examination. Their lordships will say, you have had your rights today, so that we can take other matters. And that's 2 hours. How many witnesses can you call in 2 hours? So even if you have a complete 10 days to prove your case, even if by some miracle you have 160 witnesses who have agreed to testify on your behalf, it is impossible practically to call that number of witnesses in an election petition. So there is already a ready-made answer. The petitioner failed to prove the election petition polling unit by polling unit as required by law. So the law is already out. I had a much more unfortunate situation. I had a case where the EO, electoral officer, wrote a report to say, look, I was abducted. The people took me to another place, forced me to write another result, and then drove me all the way to INEC to submit it. Please, this result is not by my will. And I was excited. Now we have evidence. I went to the tribunal. Yes, they granted us subpoena to bring the EGO to come and testify. And the wahala started. The EGO refused to come. The order was served on INEC. The tribunal is reluctant to activate its own powers of punishing for contempt and any of all of that. We took the extra trouble of reaching this EGO. What exactly is your problem? The man assures me, look, my brother, I don't have a bulletproof skin. The people who would abduct me on election day and nothing happened. You think it is my house they will not come? Do you think this small university where I lecture, they will not trace me? So, sorry sir, unless the tribunal will come and carry me, I'm not able to present myself. Okay, plan B. I went to the tribunal and boldly tendered the report. After all, it is duly signed. It is even certified by INEC. Then the law hits me. Because you did not call the maker of the report is worthless. I questioned. The result of the election that the tribunal is relying upon were the makers fault. Some very senior member of the bar, creative, and I must comment as senior advocate. He said, look, for the respondent, we are not challenging the election result. So the result is taken as given. So once the result is tendered, then the court takes it. We are not impugning it. But the burden is on him who imputes the result. If you say this result is not correct, then you bear all the demonic burdens of having to prove. Well, a clear case of election malpractice, they walk away scot-free. If we have electronic transmission, at least this one demon would have been removed from. Don't forget that when election results are generated, when you vote, you have the polling unit agents, you have the presiding officer, you have the assistant. So INEC has at least 2 officers. The political parties have their agents. Then you have security people, manpower, civil defense, police, and then the public. That provides some form of disincentive for those who want to rig there. So the rigging most of the time is not there. If you attempt to rig an election right there, that is the places where you have violence. Because there will always be counter-force. Those who will say, I do not agree. But the convenient place for rigging is this: when you will now move the results, you let let the masses vote. When they finish fooling themselves, then those who count take it from there. So that there lies the problem. Based on this, my own take, electronic transmission is a worthy objective. I do not see why we cannot